Great, good afternoon again. And as promised, we are joined by Fekitamoeloa Utoikamanu, the Undersecretary General and High Representative for Least Developed Countries, Landlocked Developing Countries, and Small Island Developing States, along with Odbayar Erdenetsogt, the Ambassador at Large and Interim Director of the International Think Tank for LLDCs, and Ambassador Lazarous Kapambwe, Permanent Representative of the Republic of Zambia to the United Nations and Chair of the Landlocked Developing Countries. They will brief you on the intergovernmental agreement on the International Think Tank for Landlocked Developing Countries, which enters into force today. Madam Undersecretary General, if you'd like to start.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Mr. Kapambwe, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the Republic of Zambia to the United Nations and Chair of Landlocked Developing Countries, Your Excellency, Mr. Erdenetsogt, Ambassador at Large and Interim Director of the International of the ITT for LLDCs, members and friends of the press. First, I would like to thank you for being here today. Today, we wish to brief you on a very important initiative that we hope will support the landlocked developing countries in their strives to achieve the goals of the 2030 Agenda and the Vienna Programme of Action. The International Think Tank for Landlocked Developing Countries, which is hosted by the government of Mongolia, while the initiative was taken some time back, it is today that we, dare I say, finally see its fruition. The think tank inscribes itself in resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly and ensuing decisions. This is a very significant achievement for the landlocked developing countries. OHR, LLS, and myself wish to congratulate the LLDCs on their unwavering pursuit over the years to get this important tool for all of the LLDCs from idea to action. Let me share some pertinent background with you. Why such a think tank? You are aware of the specific challenges that landlocked developing countries face, for example, due to geographic features, making them more remote from seaports, requiring major investments into road infrastructure, issues of financing of infrastructure investments, access to IT, trade issues, and I could go on. Thus, equipping the landlocked developing countries with analytical capacity, with a platform for experience and knowledge sharing, and a tool to enhance the visibility of shared issues is a truly strategic effort. Indeed, the think tank will provide a center of excellence for high-quality research and policy advice and will contribute to further strengthening of the analytical capacities of landlocked developing countries. It will undertake research on the priority areas of the Vienna Programme of Action, identify best practices on issues concerning landlocked developing countries, and widely disseminate them amongst all. Strengthen analytical capacities of the landlocked developing countries in key areas of sustainable development to help them overcome their geographic disadvantages. Assist in the formulation of joint platforms or common positions for concerted efforts on the LLDCs at international fora, and foster enhanced cooperation between the landlocked developing countries through exchange of information and experience. So this important think tank is the first intergovernmental body of the landlocked developing countries. By ratifying the agreement, LLDCs have shown their highest level of political commitment to tackle the development challenges that they face. And by bringing the agreement into force, we can now begin the work on formalizing the think tank and turning the vision for a strategic tool into reality. My colleague, Ambassador Odbayar, who is the interim director of the think tank, is with us and can brief you further details and work undertaken already, but also the work now ahead to fully operationalize the think tank. For background on how we got to today, I just wish to share that OHR, LLS, and the Office of Legal Affairs supported the group of LLDCs to elaborate the multilateral agreement for the establishment of the international think tank that was endorsed at the group's 9th ministerial meeting in September 2010 in New York. The agreement on the establishment of the International Think Tank for LLDCs was open for signature and ratification in October 2010. In the interim, we recognize partnership of the International Think Tank with other UN agencies, including UNDP, WTO, and UNCTAD, as well as other institutions. Once more, I take the opportunity to thank all the LLDCs that have ratified the agreement so far for helping us reach this milestone. I also urge those members who haven't yet ratified to do so as soon as possible so that they can benefit as well from this new capacity. Moving forward, the United Nations, and in particular my office, would like to assure you of our commitment to the full formalization of the think tank. We stand ready to support this process, including by participating as an observer in the inaugural meeting of the Board of Governors. OHR LLS will continue to work closely with the think tank to undertake joint work to address the special needs of the LLDCs, and we will mobilize all our UN system partners and their capacities to support the think tank. And I close by calling for strong support of the think tank financially and in kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Ambassador, if you'd like to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Under Secretary General, Ambassador Odbayar, and members of the press. Today, I join the Under Secretary General and the Ambassador at large in celebrating the entry into force of the agreement for the establishment of the International Think Tank for the Landlocked Developing Countries, bringing one of our aspirations proclaimed in our 2007 declaration of our meeting of trade ministers held in Ulaanbaatar into reality. This agreement is entering into force when we are 3 years into the implementation of the Vienna Programme of Action and 2 years of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The timing is good, as we are trying to foster coherence in the implementation of the Vienna Programme of Action and the 2030 Agenda, and with the other development frameworks, including the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, the WTO Trade Facilitation Agreement, and others. The landlocked developing countries continue to face high transport and trade costs, and our share of global exports remains low and has been on the decline. Their economies remain highly vulnerable, with the challenges of their geography compounded by other pressures, such as climate change, desertification, land degradation, and drought. In addition, the LLDCs have limited productive capacities and are still mainly dependent on export commodities with very low value addition and technology content, resulting in high vulnerability to commodity price volatility. To succeed in achieving the SDGs and to ensure that we leave no one behind, we will need to ensure that the Vienna Programme of Action is fully implemented, since the program is also integral to the 2030 Agenda. This is the first intergovernmental organization of the landlocked developing countries, marking our commitment to work together to address our specific challenges. The International Think Tank on LLDCs will strengthen not only our analytical abilities, but will also strengthen our coordination and common voice in global dialogue, especially at the United Nations and at the World Trade Organization. The work of the think tank contributes to the effective implementation of the Vienna Programme of Action and the achievement of the SDGs by the LLDCs. I wish to recognize in this respect the extensive work that the think tank is already undertaking under interim management. In my capacity as chair of Landlocked Developing Countries, allow me to convey deep appreciation of my group to the government of Mongolia for hosting the think tank and for its generous financial support to the interim operations of the think tank. I also commend the UN OHRLLS for its hard work in providing the necessary support. I also wish to encourage and invite more LLDC members to ratify the agreement in addition to those that have already done so. And I call on the LLDCs, on development partners, international organizations, foundations, and the private sector to financially and technically support the think tank. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Ambassador Odbayar, place a few words.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Lazarous Kapambwe, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the Republic of Zambia to the United Nations and Chair of LLDC Group, Your Excellency, Madam Undersecretary General, distinguished members of the press. It is my profound honor and pleasure to announce that the multilateral agreement on the establishment of the International Think Tank for Landlocked Developing Countries has entered into force today. This is a very important and historic day for all landlocked developing countries, as this international think tank is the first and the only think tank there is dedicating its work to the special needs and challenges of the LLDC community in particular. The International Think Tank started active operations under its interim management scheme in 2012 with the kind contribution of $1 million of the government of Mongolia. As the initiating and host country of the International Think Tank, the government of Mongolia supported the International Think Tank to establish the Interim Secretariat, provided office premises in the UN House in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, and provided other necessary support to transform the institution to a think tank with full operation even during its interim stage. As of today, 10 countries have become party to the multilateral agreement for the establishment for an international think tank for LLDCs, and these countries are Mongolia, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Armenia, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Burkina Faso, Paraguay, Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, and Nepal. The International Think Tank is a reality. With the entry into force of the agreement, it will transition into full operation as an intergovernmental body. The think tank has already done some substantive work and published several research papers and handbooks that are important to all LLDCs, including a handbook on multilateral trade negotiations, bilateral transit transportation agreements of landlocked developing countries, and also the WTO trade facilitation agreement. And we have specifically looked into the implications of this trade facilitation agreement on landlocked developing countries in particular. The most recent research was conducted by the International Think Tank for LLDCs in cooperation with the University of Sydney on connectivity issues of landlocked developing countries, exploring potentials of trade connectivity, ICT connectivity, and as well as transit transportation connectivity of landlocked developing countries with its coastal neighbors. We have also worked closely with the United Nations system organizations, including the UN OHRLLS, UNESCAP, UNCTAD, UNDP, and UNECE, and other international and regional organizations on issues that address the special needs and challenges facing landlocked developing countries. The International Think Tank has also started a research project on economic diversification of landlocked developing countries in line with the articles of the Vienna Programme of Action, looking at the cases of Bhutan, Nepal, Mongolia, and Paraguay. And the draft report of this research project will be available towards the end of this year. The International Think Tank will focus on those issues that are of most relevance to the LLDCs, thereby helping to realize the principles of the 2030 Agenda for Development of leaving no one behind. The International Think Tank will provide for the necessary practical support to help the LLDCs get closer to achieving their development aspirations within the SDGs and the Vienna Programme of Action. As next steps, the International Think Tank for LLDCs will ask the countries that acceded to the multilateral agreement to appoint their representatives to the Board of Governors of the International Think Tank in line with Article 6 of the multilateral agreement. The Board of Governors will be composed of one representative from each country that is party to the multilateral agreement. At the first board meeting, which is planned to be organized in March 2018, the board will discuss the issues pertaining to the full operationalization of the think tank. In June 2018, the International Think Tank for LLDCs, with the government of Mongolia and partners, plan to organize the first ever inaugural meeting of the International Think Tank in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Representatives of LLDCs, as well as the Undersecretary General and High Representative for LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDS, and representatives of partner organizations will be invited to this meeting next year. During the inaugural meeting, we will also organize the signing ceremony of the host country agreement between the International Think Tank and the government of Mongolia. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Edie?
Thank you very much on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association. Thank you for doing this briefing. My name is Edith Lederer from the Associated Press. I'm wondering why it took from 2007 or 2010 until 2017 for this to come into force. And you named the 10 landlocked developing countries that are parties. How many countries still have not ratified this agreement?
Should I answer? The landlocked developing countries group consists of 32 nations, out of which 10 have already ratified. And next potential members are also coming. But as you already know, the ratification process in each country and the legal requirements are different. So it took us quite some time to get the required number of countries. The reason why it took so long, for us, if you ask me, it took us 5 years, an active operation to go to the countries, talk to the member states. In my opinion, it was quite fast. We have seen other agreements that never enter into force, but it is really, it has something to do with the member states itself, because some countries are kingdoms, some of them are democracies, some of them require ratification and endorsement in the cabinet first and then goes to parliament. And then they have also other numerous agendas on their plan. So it really needed some ownership and dedication and also the leadership of the High Representative's office to do some advocacy work for this international think tank. But I think the classical question was, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? We could have sit there in Mongolia and said, well, we need the international agreement, the multilateral agreement enter into force before we start working as a think tank and be useful to the landlocked developing countries. But we didn't do so. We realized that we had to be active, we had to be proactive, and we had to deliver before the countries sees this think tank as a useful platform and useful think tank for themselves. So we needed to deliver, and we contributed towards their dialogue and also using high-quality research.
So what impact actually does it come, the agreement coming into force today actually have? It isn't really going to change the program that you have for research, for instance.
Well, at least it gives us the legal status being an intergovernmental body. Up to now, we have been working under the Interim scheme, which was mainly guided by the government of Mongolia with its contributions. And now, under the new and legal scheme, we will be an intergovernmental body, an international organization with its governing body, the Board of Governors. And this Board of Governors will be consisting of representatives of the member states, and they will have their say and voices in the international think tank. So the future work will be more effective and will be more dealing with the landlocked developing countries rather than we, the interim secretariat, doing research really for them, thinking for them, but now they will come to us with their ideas and suggestions on what kind of research they need, where are their obstacles, and what kind of recommendations they need.
I'd like to ask the ambassador of Zambia a question. Several websites have said that you've made a success of being landlocked. Not that everything in the country runs well, but this is not a major problem anymore. Where do you ship your, what do you use, Durban, Dar, Namibia, to get your goods there? And why do people think you have been a success in defeating this?
Well, thank you very much. All of the above. We use, as you know, we are an economy that is a mixed economy, mostly private sector driven. And so the decisions as to which port you are going to use depend on the efficiencies that the exporter or the importer can negotiate with the different authorities, logistics authorities. But we also believe that as a mindset, instead of seeing landlockedness as a negative, we have tried to change the mindset into what we call land-linkedness. Instead of seeing ourselves as landlocked, let's see ourselves as land-linked. And the government's proactive approach in facilitating trade and with the help of partners like the EU has also extended to creating policy frameworks that facilitate business. So the interest that the international community, business community has had in the country, the marketing that has been done essentially because there has been relatively stable governments in our country, relative and feisty democracies in our country. We have not had any conflicts, civil wars and things like that, has helped a great deal. So it's a combination of all these factors, the policies of the government, the fact that the environment allows the business community to take independent decisions, and the strength also of the civil service of the country, which relatively is a functioning civil service. Thank you.
My question is to His Excellency, the Ambassador of Zambia. Your country is the world. Okay. Your country is the world's biggest producer of copper or silver. Do you have any other option for diversifying your economy in case copper fails or the price of copper fail? Because I'm worried you are too dependent on copper.
Yes, indeed. Diversification of the economy is the cornerstone of our 7th National Development Plan. And agriculture plays a very big role in that respect. We are not only an exporter of copper, a major exporter of copper, we also export many other things, including cobalt. I think we must be among the top 10 cobalt exporters. But we've gone into industrialization. We've taken advantage of the fact that we are blessed with a lot of water resources compared to other countries in the region. And so in the last 10 years or so, even as the region has been experiencing drought, even as our country has been experiencing drought, we still have been registering surpluses in food production. And we have been one of the major exporters to the World Food Programme for their programs in the region, and also one of the major exporters to the countries in Southern Africa. So we are expanding the economy, we are diversifying into agriculture, into industrialization, and into many other things that we are endowed with.
Thank you, Matthew.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Matthew Lee, Intercity Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access. Thanks for the briefing. I'm looking at you guys' website and this e-library. It looks good. Going to keep reading it. But I wanted to ask what seemed to me, at least, maybe there's in listing the signatories and the ratifications, it doesn't. Zambia is not listed. Can you say, like, what's the status with the think tank of Zambia? And it also under supporters, I just wanted to understand it. It said it has a page for individuals to support, but it's not. There's nothing on it yet. I don't know if you're seeking individual support. And in terms of government support, it lists only Austria. At least maybe it's just a failure to update. It lists Austria, 13,000 euros in 2014, and then two either the same or two separate contributions from the government of Mongolia, 540. The last one being in 2015. Is it a failure to update? Have there been more? Are you open to individual contributions, and why isn't Zambia a member, or does it seek to be? Thanks.
Well, Zambia is working very hard to ensure that we ratify as quickly as possible. We have signed, but we have not ratified yet. And that is partly because in the last year, we were having elections, and we just constituted a new parliament. And so since our ratifications have to go through the parliamentary process, it does take a bit of time. But our commitment is there, and we hope that before the end of the year, we can be one of those that ratify. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for these words, appreciating our library. It was great. We needed to work long hours on it because many member states requested to have that kind of library because we wanted to. They find many other websites of international organizations as a jungle, and they can't find it. So we have spent money on people working and categorizing on already available papers to make them ready to publish it on our website and help those countries, and also researchers and teachers, and also other experts who need those things, and that's regarded as a very useful tool. On the contributions, that is in fact a failure in updating because we are experiencing some difficulties on the company that runs this server and also runs this website. Of course, they are procured, and we have been talking to them over the last 2 months, so they will do their job very soon. In terms of contributions, we're open to contributions from just in line with the Vienna Program of Action, also private sector, private entities, intergovernmental organizations, international organizations, and donors as well. So this website really is built to show that these groups can contribute towards the work of the intellectual work of the international think tank. Thank you. Thank you.
That'll be the last question.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for this briefing. Ambassador, your country is obviously a success story, and you talked about the domestic factors contributing to that success. But can you talk to me about your relationship to your neighbors, the role of that? How you deal with your neighbors, and how is your relationship with your neighbors helps you to have a sustainable economy? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, we have 8 neighbors, and it has been not always easy. As you know, for instance, one of our big neighbors is the Democratic Republic of Congo, which has not had a lot of stability for certain periods in time. And our border just with that country is 2,146 kilometers. So it's huge spaces that we're dealing with. But in terms of infrastructure connection, we were more connected with the Southern African and East African countries historically. And so we have not had to ship most of our exports through the northern corridors or the western corridors. However, the road infrastructure network which we have established has opened up, for instance, the market of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So much so that Congo is now the 3rd largest trading partner with Zambia. So most of our production is purchased by the Democratic Republic of Congo. Because we have maintained good political relations with almost all our neighbors, it has been easier for us to overcome many of the challenges that otherwise would have been there if we didn't have such good relations. And the infrastructure network, which we established in the 70s, for instance, the outlets to the eastern coast, has greatly contributed to facilitating our export and import business. So we believe that investing in friendship, in good political relations, has impacted positively on our trade. Thank you.
We'll squeeze in one brief question from the media. And then
Just a quick question for the ambassador. How is this center financed?
The center is financed at the moment over 85% with the contributions of the government of Mongolia as the host country. But however, with the rising number of the members, the contributions from different resources are also rising. United Nations Development Program is implementing a joint project with our international think tank, which contributes also towards the intellectual work, but also financially within the framework of a joint project. Some other member states, like landlocked but developed countries like Austria, Czech Republic, and Luxembourg, are also raised interest in supporting the think tank. But we have also many things to learn from them, because they're also landlocked, and but they have succeeded in developing their economy in a way that they are not a developing country anymore. So the contributions will certainly come in the future from the member states and private sector, and as well as from partner organizations as well.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we have the briefing with the Saudi ambassador in a few minutes.
Thank you.